Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project here on the Nerd Party Network. Dallas King and myself make our way through the A24 filmography and along the way bring you interviews with the talent involved. So we mentioned last week that we're waiting for Bodies to arrive in the UK, a date for Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, and as this episode drops, we're probably currently in the midst of the Edinburgh Film Festival. We've already seen After Sun. I think today is the day we go see Funny Pages as part of the festival, but we've got a brand new A24 film to review, and an unexpected one at that too.
Is it an A24 film?
That's the big question that we've got today as we review Elizabeth, A Portrait in Parts. This was one that we we're not looking forward to.
Didn't have the chance to look forward to it. You surprised me with it.
Yeah, it was the other day. I was just sort of refreshing the sort of the A24 filmography thing of like, oh come on, what we've been a bit behind. There must is there something that we can look forward to? And there's a couple of shows on the horizon, some movies coming out. But I noticed this one randomly dropped in, Elizabeth, A Portrait in Parts, and I was like, I have to cross-check that. I can't just take Wikipedia, its word for this. And then I did a little simple search, and I discovered that A24 partnered with Showtime to release this film in the States. So probably falls very much under that sort of tenuous Elephant Queen one that we had on Apple TV.
Yes,
so
official but not official. It doesn't really appear like on the official A24 films page, but if you look on Wikipedia, it turns up.
I think what we might discover almost is that we should sort of just go, you know what, if it's on an A24 mug, I don't know if they're still producing up-to-date mugs, that's what counts. Otherwise, this just is a very odd one. So
if it's not on a mug, wear the mug for reviewing it. That's a British term for our American listeners, by the way. You need to watch Love Island probably to get it. We're going to spill the tea on this one.
Yeah, for those who, like us, had not heard of this film until a few days ago and we scrambled to watch it on Amazon, Elizabeth is an archive-based documentary film about the Queen. A documentary on the life of Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning British monarch and longest serving female head in the state of history. So this was Roger Michell's last film before he died. He might be familiar to people for his work on Notting Hill, Venus, and Persuasion, but Dallas, when I reached out to you the other day about Elizabeth, A Portrait in Parts, what was your reaction to this A24 film that neither of us knew existed and we were now going to have to dust off our A24 notebooks for reviewing this film?
Well, I had heard of it. I was just very surprised that we were going to be reviewing it. I think it was released in the UK by Signature Entertainment, and it was released, very unsurprisingly, to coincide with the Queen's Jubilee in June. I'd seen that it was coming out. Was I going to watch it? No. Did I have any, enthusiasm to watch it? No. There was a lot of stuff on around that time to do with the Queen, whether it was on BBC Channel 4. There was lots of documentaries, lots of retrospectives, lots of celebration. So, this one just kind of fell into just, it's one of those things which is on. So, I had watched, some royal content recently. I'd watched The Princess, another sort of archive-based documentary that was looking at primarily the sort of the media's relationship with the monarchy, and in particular Princess Diana and the events that led up to her tragic death in 1997. So, this one, at least it was my preferred style of documentary, which is this. It's become, I think, a lot more popular recently, thanks to the work of director Asif Kapadia, who did the Senna documentary and the Oscar-winning Amy documentary, which was using archive footage to tell the artist or F1 driver or the subject's own story through, the media's, documentation of them. So I don't really like a talking head style documentary because you're getting increasingly sometimes tenuous links to what do these people really know. I mean, I think you said when we reviewed the Sparks documentary, you were very interested to hear what Sparks had to say about Sparks and their music, but less so about people like Jason Schwartzman or Mike Myers, who had listened to the band and grown up with the band and stuff like that. You were not really interested in what they had to say. You were interested to hear what the people behind the band were doing. So, I was watching this, and when it says it takes it in parts, it does sort of look at different elements of the Queen's life, sort of from her ascendancy to the throne, her parents, her children, her representation in the media, the work that she does. So it's always lots of little segments, which I would say are sometimes either soundtracked with song lyrics which are right on the nose, or there's some interesting song choices. I didn't, for one, realize, this is, a documentary should educate, entertain, and inform. I was certainly educated. I did not realize there were so many rap songs about Queen Elizabeth when I started watching this documentary. But in terms of the educating and inform beyond the musical choices, did I learn anything about the Queen that I didn't really know before? Probably not. Obviously, I think any documentary that was coming out about Queen Elizabeth during the Queen's Jubilee was always going to be probably scrutinised by, the press office for the royal family and stuff like that. So would it have the opportunity to say anything controversial? Probably not. I mean, admittedly, yes, it covers very, very briefly the sort of the annus horribilis, the sort of period around Diana's death when the public opinion towards the monarchy turned slightly, where they sort of hid out in Balmoral for 5 days and didn't address the nation following Diana's death. Obviously things have gone back on side, but it does mention very briefly like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's, I guess, excommunication from the royal family at the moment, and of course the Prince Andrew situation. But it never references what the Queen specifically has had to say about that. She's remained very tight-lipped about the whole thing. So I didn't learn anything new about the Queen. So in many respects, it was, what do they call it? I guess a sort of puff piece. I mean, it's a tribute to the Queen as a hard-hitting documentary, which really allows you to learn something about the subject. It is not that documentary.
No, I did think the editing was all right. Some of these interesting snapshots, and at times it, obviously for American listeners, we use the Republican in a very, very different term here, but it's a very much more of a liberal view of things in terms of, perhaps the monarchy isn't so great. There was some points where you have sort of the Queen and her cohort and her family all just sort of enjoying sort of the trappings of royal life, whether that's riding on their horses or going to these huge kind of palaces, and sort of showcasing at the same time, well, Britain wasn't perhaps in such a great state while all of these things were taking place, and sort of, it didn't just sort of sugarcoat life outside the monarchy gates, though they certainly tried quite a lot. You'd be hard pressed to come away from that documentary and think that most people weren't fans of the Queen and that we're all quite sycophants about them all, really. But the editing was okay, but I found myself that it was definitely came from the point of view of quite a non-critical, perhaps affectionate and understanding view, almost taking this view that Elizabeth was someone that sort of threw herself into this role and has constantly had to, take on the challenges and sort of the ambassadorial kind of role that it represents, and sharing her guidance from all her decades, from Winston Churchill all the way to kind of present day. But I found it so quite sickly sweet to watch that I actually did have to watch this in parts. I think I finished it today and I started it on Monday, and I think I watched
And this
over,
is a 90-minute film, by the way.
yeah, 3-4 parts. I just found it quite hard to just sit down and watch all in one go. It was just a bit too much for me. And the one bit that did overly surprise me was the appearance of Prince Andrew. For those that weren't familiar with it, he was someone that used to frequent Jeffrey Epstein's island, and then sort of he had a very infamous BBC interview
The
here
Pizza Express Woking incident.
Yeah, he went to Pizza Express on a night when he couldn't have been, abusing someone. And, this woman described that he sweated, but he was very firm and strong and said he did not sweat. So, towards the end of the movie, when it sort of highlighted some of the controversy surrounding the Queen and, the monarchy, I was like, oh, that is unexpected. And, they really leaned into the big dramatic music at that point. So I thought, oh, that is slightly unexpected and bold, but it could have gone further. I mean, you had whole sections dedicated to kind of talking about the Commonwealth, for example, and it presented it in a very kind of lovely, well done on the Queen for growing the Commonwealth from this to that.
And 7 to 52 countries, I think, over her life, her reign, wasn't it?
And you think of the Commonwealth, for a lot of places, it's very controversial within it. I mean, I can't remember the name of the country recently where I think William and Kate had gone to visit, and they decided, no, we don't want to be part of the Commonwealth or have a monarchy anymore. And there's been a lot of pushback about that over the past few years, and there was no touching on that whatsoever. And yeah, there was just a lot of things that they get away with, just very gentle touches. I didn't come away thinking I learned anything necessarily new about her. I was surprised that she liked to do a little gamble at the horses or something like that.
With our money, probably.
That's exactly it. And I'm thinking of the cost of living crisis just now. I'm like, imagine this huge Buckingham Palace, Windsor, Holyrood. God, she must be really struggling with the cost of living crisis just now. But ultimately, I found it so tedious, and the film that it reminded me almost of, when you go to like museums and there's that little dark room where you drop in and there's always just like a film playing, you watch like 2 minutes of it, you sit down and you go, actually I'm going to go back and look at the stuff. This is the type of film that I could imagine showing in a national museum, and that's where it belongs, I think.
I mean, perhaps that was maybe. I mean, I could actually see that being maybe part of the plan behind this document, where, like you say, you've got a massive exhibition about the Queen and the Jubilee, split up into sections, and you could have like these little mini segments of the film playing on a video screen as you enter each new segment of the exhibit. So I think that could kind of work. I guess make it slightly more palatable. But I mean, you have to give credit to the Queen. The longest reigning monarch in our lifetime, and potentially many other people's lifetimes. Despite, I think, the Diana situation, there has been criticism of the monarchy overall, and certainly certain members of it, whether it be Prince Philip or Prince Andrew. A certain segment of the media do not seem to like Meghan Markle for some bizarre reason. But I think the Queen overall has always remained, in favour by the British people. So she's a stalwart. She's just kind of there. I mean, I remember we had like sort of 1 week of mourning when Prince Philip died. Was it last year or the year before? I can only imagine what will happen given the inevitable time that Queen Elizabeth passes on. There'll probably be like a month or 2 months of national mourning or something like that. I mean, I think the only time where it looked like, actually the things which I enjoyed the most probably about this, I say enjoyed, I find the most interesting, let's say, with the behind the scenes footage, like of her sort of getting ready to do a radio broadcast for one of the Christmas Queen speeches and stuff before the age of television and stuff like that, where she was, checking that everything was all right and sort of making jokes. And somebody called her Elizabeth, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. who the hell is that calling her Elizabeth? Surely it's Your Majesty or Ma'am and whatever. I mean, that person would have had their head struck from their shoulders. So it was that, or the bit with Sir David Attenborough going around the royal gardens and stuff like that, and she was trying to find the trees. Apparently, they plant a tree for every member of the royal family, and they found the Edward tree, but they couldn't find the Andrew tree. Someone had clearly dug it up or pissed on it, perhaps. And then finding out there was a sundial in the shade. It's like, what's the point of that? And she's like, maybe one put it there before there was the shade. I don't know. Maybe we should move it. So, I mean, those kind of things where you kind of got a glimpse of the person behind, this public figure, I think, were the most interesting for me. But
I was almost the opposite.
Really?
Sometimes the people that were... It was interesting in the sense that it drove me mad, where it was the people that surround the Queen, that kind of... The envoys that go ahead, where it's like... I think there was some group that were coming to meet the Queen, and it was like, well, what you do, you call her Majesty at first, then it's Ma'am, and then it's like reminding the people of like all this waste too, and then you curtsy here, and when do we give her the present?
Oh, you don't know. She will not look at you in the eye. Yes, you do not speak to her. Yes, it's very much that kind of stuff. That kind of thing. I think there's almost a more interesting sort of document. I mean, I guess there's The Crown on Netflix at the moment, but perhaps a sort of behind the scenes TV show about the people who work like that. Because I know from Spencer, one of the most interesting characters was Timothy Spall's sort of major who was in charge of running the household and stuff like that. I think that's where the real interest is the people who know the secrets, who know where the bodies are buried, so to speak. They're the people who you should speak to. Of course, obviously, they're really not allowed to until they're sort of fired or let go, and then write a scathing tell-all, unofficial biography about the whole time.
So ultimately, kind of having watched this, why do you think A24 were involved in this film? Do you think it was a contractual obligation with Showtime to just do something together, or what did they have to do with this film? We always go back to, did it bring a sort of a unique perspective to something? Why?
A24, they've got certain directors or certain stars that they work with time and again, because they know that they are going to make, not money. I mean, because let's face it, their films don't make a huge amount of bank. I mean, Everything Everywhere All at Once is their first film to actually gross over $100 million. They say worldwide, but let's face it, it's their first worldwide release. So they're not really in it for the money. They're looking to expand, audiences and stuff like that. And they've looked at, the sort of Menashe targeted sort of Hasidic Jewish speaking audiences and stuff like that. You've got Everywhere All at Once targets Asian audiences. So this, despite everything that's going on with the royal family, there is a large section of America that is obsessed with the royal family and the Queen. They come over to the UK, they stand outside Buckingham Palace, they want to get all the photos and stuff like that. So there is a market for this type of film, especially in America. So I can see that, they didn't have to finance the production of it and whatever. It was purely a distribution deal. So whether it was part of a certain amount that they have to do with Showtime or not, it's something that they can probably support quite cheaply and, hits a different demographic for them. So.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, they've certainly not advertised or promoted they're involved with this film. You kind of have to go out of your way to find it as well. But yeah, I can imagine maybe the editing appealed to them, or sort of the design of the movie in terms of these parts. But yeah, maybe it was just their spite for, you can have your Princess Diana Queen movie Neon. This is our version of it. And they both made as much money as each other, I think, based on how Spencer performed state-wise. So yeah, just nothing to be particularly excited about. A bit of I wouldn't even call it a palate cleanser before we get things like Bodies. So yeah, I think we started our week with Queen Elizabeth, and we're going to dive into After Sun in like 48 hours time. So, you know, we're certainly seeing the spectrum of good A24 and bad A24, because ultimately we as we discovered over hundreds of episodes that, you know, they don't always produce brilliant films or associated with great films, you know, so you got to take the rough with the good sometimes.
Yeah, I've just checked the A24 shop website, and they are doing mugs. They've got mugs for Marcel, they've got mugs for everywhere all at once, but they do not have a mug for Elizabeth, A Portrait in Parts. So it is not canon, so to speak, within the official A24 filmography.
There's so much Queen Elizabeth mug tat out there that they probably felt that market was already cornered.
Yeah, people would want a cheesy one with a picture of her face and some royal emblem, not the cool looking black with just a plain white text on it. That's not what they want.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We are, as we mentioned, we've got some A24 films that we're going to be watching at the Edinburgh Film Festival, and hopefully we'll have some exciting news and interviews off the back of that as well. So stay tuned, and we're looking forward to talking with you all again soon. Thanks for listening. Bye.